This video is one in a series meant for my 7th and 8th grade woodworking students. But if you are a beginning carpenter or woodworker watching from home, you may pick up some beginner's tips here as well. So I'm going to be speaking to my students directly in this video. So in this one, we're going to look at the Carpenter pencil and how to sharpen it with a utility knife. So I'd like to give a shout out and a thank you to Boulder Lumber Company. It's been serving the Boulder community since 1927. They've donated pencils to our class this year. So each student in my class is going to receive their own pencil. I'm often asked if a student may borrow a pencil. So in this case, each one is receiving their very own to take care of for the entire semester, which they may take care and take home at the end of the semester. So this will be your responsibility. You may decorate it however you like to make sure that you know which one is yours each and every day in class. So sharpening a carpenter's pencil is very, very important, especially with some of the fine woodworking projects we do here, because we need accurate layout and accurate cuts. Now there are a variety of ways to sharpen a pencil, and while there may be some applications for a very blunt sharpened tip like this, I really want you to stay away from something this blunt. This is going to give a very wide line, which is for most of our projects not helpful. What we really are headed for is a much sharper tip, hopefully almost as sharp as you can get on a traditional round pencil, but we're going to do it all with just a knife. Now while there are sharpeners available that will take a rectangular shaped pencil like this, to be honest, I've never really seen anybody using them, and I think it's just a real skill to be able to sharpen your pencil with just your knife, which is probably going to be on your hip at a job site anyway. So there's some basic techniques, and again, there's a few different varieties. I'm just going to demonstrate one here. But if we look at the pencil itself, it tends to be, it's almost rectangular with some chamfered edges on the corners. And the size and shape is very specific, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but it's very easy to grab hold of in this case, flat and wide as opposed to the smaller round ones. It does present some challenges sharpening. Let me show you a basic technique here. Now, in using a utility knife, I often point out that this is one of the most dangerous tools in the entire shop, despite having table saw, chop saw, surface planer, a whole number of other things. Utility knife is very, very dangerous, and it's not because it's very powerful. It's because, number one, it's very sharp, and number two, we tend to take it for granted. So I have a couple of rules that I always want you to follow in here. Number one is this is, remember, your responsibility to always take care of this knife. Remember that every time I trust you to use one tool, you are informing me what I can trust you with going forward. So there's never any room for joking around, pointing this at anyone. When you come in here, you need to be that mature young adult and handle this knife with care. The first major official rule here is if this knife is not in your hand, actively being used with the blade out, it should be closed. I never want to show up in the shop and find one of these knives with the blade out laid down like this. Okay? With that sharp blade out, somebody doesn't realize it's there, it can really cause a lot of damage. You shouldn't really be putting these in your pocket in this class, but if for some reason you did, or a work belt, you'd want to definitely make sure this blade was closed before you put it down or leave it out of your sight. And the standard mechanism on this is just a button along the back here, so when we hold it, it's near the thumb. You press it down and slide it forward to slide the blade out, and typically only about an inch or so of this blade sticks out. These are actually razor blades, and so they are very, very sharp, which brings us to our second official rule. And I always want you to make sure that the blade on your utility knife is really sharp. If you show up and the tip is broken off, it looks like it's been used to cut some things it shouldn't be, it's dull, just come find me and we'll replace the blade. It's much safer to use a knife with a very sharp blade than it is with a dull one. It just simply takes less effort to cut and carve than if it was dull. And then number three, probably the biggest one, is if you are always focused on using the knife when using it, I want you to make sure that you never put anything in front of the blade that you don't intend to cut. Now that sounds silly, but if you've ever been at home cutting carrots and you cut a carrot against your thumb, that would be a major violation of this rule. Okay, it just is putting ourselves in harm's way. Additionally, if I'm carving or cutting something and another student walks past me or shows up, they are now in front of my blade. And so it's my responsibility as well as theirs to make sure that never happens, or that if there is some sort of situation that I put the blade away, wait till I'm not near anyone, and just never allowing anything in front of that blade. If nothing ever got in front of the blade that I didn't want to cut, nobody could ever get hurt. It's just that simple. So let's get into the actual carving here. Later on, we will most likely be carving some spoons using just one of these. And I like using these because although you may see a lot of people with, outside of school and things with like much bigger knives they may be using for carving and purposes, really, you can do a tremendous amount with a blade that's only an inch long. So on top of that, being a woodworking shop and preparing you for the career field, handling one of these is a key skill to learn. So our goal is to get this as sharp as possible. And we really want those accurate measurements so that our cut is perfect or as near as possible. So the thicker our line is, the more margin of error. So we're aiming for this super sharp tip. And here is how we go about doing that. So if I take the pencil and I'm going to hold it in my offhand, so I'm right-handed holding the knife here. I'm going to hold the pencil in the other hand. And the first thing I'm going to do is a couple steps here I want you to go through. The first thing is I'm going to start on one of the flat sides and come back about an inch, inch and a quarter or so, right here. And again, notice how none of my hands, no fingers are in front of the blade, right? And I come in here and just start with a slight angle down in. I'm going to push with this thumb on my left hand, as well as most of the power is going to come from my right hand. And notice I'm holding this in sort of a hammer grip, I don't have my thumb on the back, no index finger. I'm holding this firmly in my hand like this, and my other hand with the thumb back here. I'm going to come in and take a single cut to shave off the flat part of the pencil right here, like so. Now you can see I've exposed the lead. It's very wide in this direction. Done that. I'm going to roll it to the other side. Same thing. Come back about the same distance. It's kind of down in, and notice how I'm flattening the cut as I go. Okay, now, so we've exposed the lead on both sides. Now I'm going to take a similar cut off the thin edges, but know that now that the pencil, that I've removed this much material, this much wood, and I'm coming from this direction, the pencil and the lead are much more brittle now, so I need to be a lot more careful and gentle. So I'm going to come in this way. Carefully come in, and I'll even may scrape a bit of the lead at this point. I'll roll it over to the other side, do the same thing, really gently. Okay? If I apply too much side force, I'm going to snap that lead right off. Okay, now, this is essentially as blunt as this one at this point. I've just exposed a lot more of the lead. So now it's time to go around and actually sharpen this. We'll do a couple of things here. One is, this is sort of pyramid shaped around here. So we have these sharp corners. First, I'm going to come back and sort of round those. I'm just going to knock those off a little bit. Also shear off a bit of the corner on the lead. Do that on each of my corners here very gently. Okay, like so. I have a lot of this lead sticking out here. This is going to be very brittle. If I started trying to draw with this, that's probably going to snap right off. So I'm going to continue to go around taking some very slight, small strokes and just starting to sharpen this down from here, focusing more and more on the lead itself. I get the pencil to the angle I want it. I can then come in and really hyper-focus on just the lead itself. Notice I'm not using more power than I have to, just nice, gentle slicing strokes. This is the kind of thing that, obviously I carved from a fresh, new pencil here, but I always want you to keep this sharp. So if you notice, even partway through class, your pencil is getting a little dull. I just want you to go over and get a utility knife and make sure you're sharpening that up, just like that. Okay. Now that's a little long. That'll wear down pretty quickly, but Doesn't need to stick out quite that far. There we go. So, there's your nice sharpened pencil. Perfect for making nice, accurate layout marks and cuts. Make sure to practice that and keep your pencil point sharp.